So I am Annaliese Vance, otherwise known as the mom who advocates for dads, co-owner of Be Present Advertising, where we do done-for-you Google ads for dad-owned and family-first service-based and trades companies. And we help you be present online so you can be present offline guilt-free. And Kevin, before I jump in, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Okay, well, first off, how we connected. We're in this networking group, and like minds are getting together. And Annalise is the expert in Google Ads, and I champion the AI visibility, the organic AI visibility part of the overall visibility equation. So basically, small business owners are wondering how they can be featured, recommended, cited, whatever description you want to apply there on AI searches, ChatGPT, Gemini, things like that. So that's what I do. I show small business owners exactly where their brand stands in AI. I have a whole tech stack that produces those results, and then work with them to make that better so they become the recommended answer when their buyers are doing the research and searching on those AI platforms.
Well, so anyone that knows me and my husband, we've been told we always have a story for everything. So of course I have a story for this event. I kept getting asked the question, okay, Annalise, I've got one more question for you. It was always at the end. People would save it at the end. And they said, do you think that Google or that AI is taking over Google Ads? To which I always said, no, they should collaborate. We did have this conversation. Is AI taking over Google Ads? So what's your first thought when you hear that, just from your perspective and how you and I have kind of figured out collaboration? If you can't figure out, we think the answer is no, but we'll see if you agree with us by the end. So Kevin, I'll start looking in the chat a little bit more and see if there's anything interesting. We'll kind of switch on and off, and you kind of give us your thoughts.
First off, SEO is still foundational, right?
Absolutely.
With all of these new AI tchotchkes that are out there and these new things that we're rolling out, you still have to have good SEO. And so that kind of dispels that classic argument that's going on now, SEO is dead, it's all AEO. And then the other side of the coin is like, no, it's SEO is everything. Just do that. It's everything. But where paid ads come into play here is because you can definitely target and retarget those audiences to get that initial drive of traffic. But what's going to help you in growing this organic foundation is building that trust and authority online, because maybe getting that initial touch point through a paid ad generates a traffic, but that's not necessarily going to land on your website and result in a sale unless you're doing transactional type sales, selling lipstick or something like that. If there's any meat on the bone for what you offer and it's a consultative or a complex offer, there's going to be conversations that happen. That's just part of that natural sales cycle. But as buyers or prospects are doing their initial research online, they're going to hit a bunch of different touch points. And that's why this whole online journey looks like this big, messy spaghetti bowl now. It's not this clearly defined funnel that it used to be. And even with all of those foundational elements that you're building in from that organic, you can target the right people and retarget your audience intelligently through your paid ads strategy. So with that, I will throw it back to you.
Throw it back to me.
So you can start breaking out some of your secret sauce on the paid side.
So I will get into some of the secret sauce, but I want to back up. And Kevin, I thought of you yesterday. I was on a VC with a young lady from SCN, and she literally, as we were talking, she was asking me questions, but she said, yeah, I'm looking at your LinkedIn and I'm verifying that things are true. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Kevin and I are talking about. And so one of the things we talked about in some of our pre-calls was people aren't just looking for you in one place. And they're looking not only at your business, but also at you personally, right? They're seeing that you are who you say you are. There's nothing crazy out there. There's nothing that maybe just, throws them off, maybe value wise. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, although I could. So, I mean, they're looking at you on LinkedIn, and they're looking at you in AI, if that's what they use. They're looking at you on Google. They're looking at your website. They're looking for credibility. So, why don't you talk about that? And you can throw it back to me. I will eventually throw in my secret sauce, but I want to start from kind of the beginning.
So basically, I mean, and this is really simplifying it, probably oversimplifying it, but it breaks it down into a framework that people can understand. It's essentially, people don't go to Google first generally, especially in those big ticket complex offers, looking for a consultant, something like that. They are going to go to AI and ask very pointed, specific questions because people are looking for an answer. The old like playbook was to optimize for keywords, and the result was you wanted to get on page one and be one of the top 10 links. And then you play the game like, how far up that list can I get? I want to get top 3. It doesn't mean anything unless I'm top 3. Well, now, you're getting a specific answer from these AI engines. You want to be on that short list because that's where the data collection is starting, right? As part of the shift in human behavior. This is the big thing that I don't hear mentioned a lot. There's a lot of talk about the tech and AI and everything it's doing, but it's how people are treating the process of using the internet now, because they are more adapt to hit that AI button first, but then not having full confidence in what they're finding on AI to be true. So then they bump over to Google to verify what it's, they want to fact check AI and verify
Yes.
their findings. And then, so that's where you want to show up. So again, to kind of weave this web of organic, and paid, the paid, if somebody, it doesn't mean that people just don't use Google anymore. Yes, there's plenty of Google searches, but what the data shows is that 60% of Google searches are now 0 click. Mm-hmm. Which means they're getting what they need and they're moving on. Maybe they're checking the temperature, their flight status, who knows. But AI is definitely more and more becoming that first touch point. But if they go to Google first, or if they go to AI first, doesn't matter. At some point, they are going to land on Google, and that's where your paid strategy can come in, because it helps keep their brand front and center. And one of the other things on the slide that I wanted to touch on is, classically, when you think of advertising in general, so it's all about frequency. It's all about repetition and frequency and staying in front, keeping your brand in front of people, right?
Yeah.
The old framework was the rule of 7. So somebody had to be introduced, exposed, see your brand, hear your brand 7 times before there was any type of recall. What has happened now is there's so much stuff out there. There's so much noise. It's really information overload. And so it's really progressed to almost the rule of 15. So for your brand to have any sort of a recall, instant recall where somebody can remember you to go back to search your name or your domain, they have to see you 15 times. And that's why that omni-channel approach is so critical now. So are you showing up in AI? Are you showing up in traditional Google? What is your paid ad strategy? Are you on, social media platforms where your audience is? But all those places, you have to be front and center to today's buyer.
I couldn't agree more. You and I think it was yesterday, we've had a few pre-call conversations, but I always use the example of a Chipotle burrito. If you're not a fan of Chipotle, pick your fast food that's up on a billboard. But, you'll be driving along with the family, and, the husband and wife always have the fun conversation. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? Right. You see a Chipotle sign, right? And you weren't even thinking about Chipotle, right? And so maybe you go that day and you have that, or I have a salad or a bowl or whatever your, secret sauce is. But maybe, it's later and you're in Kroger and it's on the back of a receipt, or you're talking to your buddy and you're like, man, or they bring it in for their lunch, whatever it is. I'm not going to come up with 15 examples. But what we were talking about yesterday is who gets the credit, right? I mean, we both work with business owners, and what business owner doesn't want to say, I have all of my business through word of mouth and all referrals, right? I mean, what an ego boost, right? Like, who doesn't want to say that? And at least the customers I work with, and if any of them are listening, you all are brilliant. This is not, but they want to think like it all came from this. The customers that work with us understand what you're saying, and the ones, and I'm not going to name drop, but work with multiple people that we probably both work with, is it takes a village, right? It's not just one thing, right? And the point I'm trying to get to is even that word of mouth sometimes comes to Google or AI, whichever, both, to verify, right? Or to find a phone number or to find a website, right? Like, I'm a weirdo that has a bunch of tradespeople in my phone because that's what I've done for the last 20 years. But I'm not most people. So most people are going to go to their channel of choice and they're going to search, and they all need to get credit, right? Because bringing it over to the advertising side, right? And I mentioned a few of them before, but they're going to go to your website. They're going to search for you in whatever, I'm not going to name drop, all the different AI tools, but they're going to pick their one of choice or multiple. Some people are super techie and have multiple. They're going to go to LinkedIn. They're going to go to your personal LinkedIn. They're going to go to your business page. So you want to have a LinkedIn business page. They're going to go to Facebook. And if your product makes sense, Instagram and X, if you're a male over 40, right? They're going to pick all of those things. And you don't know which one is going to grab their attention. So they need all of them. And they all get credit. That is the answer. That's the whole, if you get one thing from the end of this, it's all a collaboration, right? It all takes a village. There's not one main channel. I would be horrible at what we did if I told you to only be on Google Ads. That would be inane. I like to be known as the gal who, Annaliese, do you know this person? Yes. I get that question a lot. That's one of my favorite questions. But Kevin, with how you and I collaborate, right? From your perspective, how should the two be married together? How, what should we be educating a customer on that they need to cover?
I think it's important to point out that there's not a one size fits all solution. We're not going to just roll this out and say this is the master strategy. Every business is going to be different. They have
Absolutely.
different ICPs. What's important is to do an analysis, do a deep dive, and figure out the brand that you're helping, right? Where are their buyers at? What platforms are they using? So when you use the Chipotle example, what you're essentially defining there is attribution. All right, where does the link come from? Where does that buyer come from? And it's gotten more challenging over time. Is that coming from an agentic source? Is that AI driven? Because that's another element, is that as these AI agents are growing, some of this is automated searches that are happening by some of these tools that are put together, like for instance, in Cowork. In fact, I read something like completely compelling yesterday on LinkedIn. And I don't know if this is true. I mean, take it for face value. This is something I
Right?
read on LinkedIn, but they were,
Maybe AI
I think it
created it.
was Elon Musk or somebody like that was saying that, I don't know, by 2030, human traffic's going to be a rounding error because of just the growth in AI searches and these automated platforms and robots, talking to each other. I don't know. Is it science fiction? It's definitely plausible. I tell you
Sure.
that. But the one thing I'll say about it is we have to be careful, you and I, because we can start going down this rabbit hole and getting like really deep and really
Absolutely.
sophisticated with all this stuff. And look, there's a lot of sophisticated people out there that are making incredible tools and processes and automations using AI. But today, there is a large percentage of people that are using it at the very basic level, right? Different age groups. And
Yes.
so we have to be careful not to take the bait of following our own conversation, going down this rabbit hole, and
Yes.
to look at it. So, and I'll give you a case in point. So
Okay.
my in-laws ran over the weekend, and, have great chats with my father-in-law, and he's a retired guy. And he's he loves ChatGPT and Gemini, and he's using it for his own, research and finance and things like that. But his use doesn't go beyond a simple chat tool of asking it questions and getting it. Now he's getting great feedback from that, but I think that, and I'm not picking on him, but I'm just using that as a demonstration of, there's so much more capability on the AI side, and some people are tapping into it, but not the bulk of the users that are out there.
Kevin, thank you for bringing up this point. This wasn't even prompted. This was my answer.
Right.
So you went into your history a little bit with radio. I actually got started in advertising when I was 21. And believe it or not, what I was hired to do was to sell ads in the phone book. That was in 2007. 2008, Google came to our agency, asked us to be resellers. The economy was going to crap at the same time. I'm not Donnie, so I'll say family-friendly word. And all of a sudden the sky was falling, and all of a sudden everyone wanted to get out of the phone book and they wanted to get onto the Google, right? It's actually what they called it back then, scarily enough.
The Google.
And I always said there were three camps of people back then, and I think there's three camps of people now. There were the people that said that the internet was the devil. Don't tell it anything. Don't give it your credit card. It's going to ruin your life, and don't get on there, right? Then there were the people who were very, very cautious, right? About, testing it out, and, maybe back then for me, like, getting on to like, I don't know, AOL Messenger. That's a little far back, but, like just kind of testing it. And then there was also the people that were like the early adopters. And, what I always told people back then is, let's check what the data says, right? We had back then RCFs, remote call forwarding numbers. I'm still a huge believer in data. I'm sure you can maybe talk on that with AI. We can definitely talk on that with Google Ads. Everything should be tracked, recorded. There should be no questions. That's a huge area where I'm very passionate about helping people, because it all comes down to ROI at the end. But what we found is there were some people that should move entirely to Google because they weren't getting calls that were producing anything. Then you had a bunch of people in the trades, who is the majority of people that we help. They were the people that were still getting a bunch of very low cost leads from the phone book. And then as those started dropping, we started transitioning slowly, data oriented wise, to Google, but keeping a presence in the phone book. The last phone book we actually ever put out was in 2018, which is crazy. It's almost 10 years ago. It's wild. They're still getting free calls because there's still that 80 to 90-year-old woman that still has a phone book that still goes there. And we used to do races to see if you could find something faster in the phone book or on Google, right? Because you could go right to plumbers, you could find the ad, you could call someone, get a hold of them. And at the end of the day, right, for customers that are trying to get in touch with our customers, that's what they want, is for people to get in contact with them and want to give them money. But I think the same parallel is true with Google Ads or with Google Ads versus whatever AI tool you're going to use. I do think, like you said, there's the people that are just really freaked out by it, right? It's listening to me. I don't want it knowing anything about me. Don't put my information public.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the majority of people, right? And then I think you've got the people who were the early adopters who started it from the beginning and they've created an agent to run their entire life, and they're brilliant, incredible people, and not me because I can't figure out how to put a picture in StreamYard. It's fine. And then you have people like me that are kind of in the middle, and I do think that we are the majority where we're starting to test it. We're like, okay, it makes sense for this. Okay, I'm not quite ready for this, right? And I do want to answer Colin's question here, but I do want to get back to your basics that you said. So pinpoint that for me. But Colin said, I'm in Dallas, but I'm extremely interested in how AI is affecting the PPC game, especially now that ChatGPT is incorporating ads into their chat. So Kevin, can you talk on that from your perspective? I'm more the Google Ads girl, not the ChatGPT ads girl. Are you familiar with that? Anything that you can
I'm
point Kevin
familiar.
to?
Yeah, I'm
Or
familiar, but I'm
Colin? You're
not.
Kevin.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
not. And Colin, thank you for the question. So I'm not like deeply, like I can't just speak on this whole paid ads in Chat GPT thing, but I've seen it. I'm familiar with it. I know it's there, and it is. From what I understand, it's quite expensive. So the people that the ads that I've seen um, are really bigger brands that maybe have bigger budgets. So, if you're an enterprise account, then yeah, there's probably conversation there. If you're a small business, I don't know, because I don't know how Chat GPT is targeting that the same way that you would target like a Google ad.
Right.
That being said, where I've seen the ads, and I'm finding myself using ChatGPT less and less these days. I kind of primarily use Claude and Gemini for my stuff, but I occasionally pop into ChatGPT. And where I've seen those ads, it's always at the end of whatever the answer is, what the end of the output is. And so I think they're doing that on purpose because Google, they kind of got wrapped up in all the ads and put all the sponsored links up front and then the snippets and everything else. And then, so, I mean, you would be a page, if not page and a half deep before any organic ads. But I think
Yes.
that as time has gone on, the old adage of, top of the fold is not as crucial because I think people are just kind of trained to scroll these days.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's, of course, this is just opinion, but I do think that people carry extra weight with what is going to show up organically, and so they will scroll down the page to see. They'll see the paid ads up top, but they still want to get that extra verification. That's why, okay, going full circle. If
Yeah.
you're running a targeted ad campaign and you're one of the sponsor links at the top of Google, right?
Yeah.
And then you go down and you're one of the organic results, guess what? You've kind of proven your point, right? And you've
Yeah.
got 2 of those 15 touches now. But
Yeah.
going back to the Chat GPT thing, not to get away from that,
No, you're good.
I have noticed that the placement is at the bottom of the responses, unless that's changed recently. So there's still a lot of value to show up organically as that answer in those results. So, how's it going to change as time goes on? I don't know. We'll have to watch that and see.
Yeah.
My crystal ball's broken.
Dang, mine too.
I wish it was, but I wish it wasn't. But that's kind of where we are with it. But it will be interesting to watch. And I do think that just with the volume of users and traffic that's being shifted to the AI platforms with the incorporation of paid ads, they're going to get results from that. I mean, it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
we'll just have to watch it to see how much penetration that gets.
No, I hear you. And, I'll go back to the phone book analogy. Not that I'm a big fan of the phone book. We don't have one in our house. If we did, it'd be like a table stopper. But it took 10 years it took from 2008 to 2018 for the phone book to actually die off. I do think AI is super popular. It's growing in popularity. But I think it's, to your point, it's a slower adoption rate. It is being adopted, but it's a slower adoption rate than the public, I think, is being told. And I think, to your point, it's important for people to be in multiple places. I also, Colin, my perspective on your question is it depends on what industry you're in, right? If you are in a more, well, he's in B2C, but a lot of B2B ones, I do think there's more research. I do think that there's going to be more of those 15 touch points reached, and I won't list them all again because I've done that a couple of times. But I think for who we deal with, just personally, with trades and service-based companies, if it's an emergency situation, I think they're going to be less apt to go to the 15 different points. They're going to go to where they get someone's attention first, because they're just, their toilet's overflowing or their AC just went out, and y'all are in Texas, and that's unnecessary, right? To that point, if they are an AI user, you need to be there. If they are the organic user that's like, I'm not doing ads because you're going to overcharge me, and that perspective is out there, right? We know about it. Then you want to be an organic. If they're going to go to the ads or they're going to go to LSA, you want to be in multiple places. If they're going to ask somebody on Meta, you want to be there. And we're not going to spread out to all the different advertising places, but though they might not get to all 15, you want to be in all 15 because you don't know where they're going to go, or they're going to ask someone else's opinion, and then the spider web gets bigger, right? Because then you go to where did they go, and then they're texting it back, right? And since working with you, my AI visibility score doubled. And we have 11 new 5-star reviews. So can you talk on that and why you brought that up and why that's so important? Because I agree with you, Vince Lombardi, this is a football. We do need to do basics, and that's what we help our customers with. Websites, is your landing page good? Is there a clear call to action? We're not going to get into an advertising talk, but there are so many little pieces that people can forget the basics about and try and go after the big new cool thing, but forget that it's a football. So can you talk on that?
So there's a lot to unpack there.
I know. That's welcome to a conversation
basically,
with me.
We can distill it down to this, right? So everything you talked about, all the different varying touch points, and we talked about attribution, everything else. That's why omnichannel is so critical. And then so that taps into everything. That's, the organic work, that's your paid ads, that's social media to build that trust and that authority. So it's the Google EEAT, expertise, experience, authority, and trust. And you just want to build all those things through all of your different channels and make sure that you're in front of your people. And going back to one of the earlier points that I made, that SEO is foundational. And then so all of the basic practices are valid and all apply. And part of that is the Google business profile page. I do have a suggestion. I think that should be shelved for the next time we meet to really open that up. Okay. And that, along with going deeper into what you talked about follow the data, because the data tells the story. And the thing is, if you don't have enough foundational landscape or real estate online, then you're not being able to pull the data to be able to measure.
That is data, isn't it? At that point.
Yeah. So you got to build it, and then you got to test it, research it, test it, and then iterate, and then rinse and repeat. And that's why I help and you help people on an ongoing basis, because it is an iterative process. It's not like, hey, here you go, done, you're good to go. No, you're constantly refining, and there's changes in the market. There's changes in people's behaviors. And so you just have to follow the trends, and you have to make those points along the way.
Kevin, where can people connect with you if they do want to continue this conversation from your angle?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. I'm pretty active, so I'm easy to find there. My website is ktvdigital.com. You can find me there. I have a free tool where, anybody can put their website in there and get a general score of how they're, being showcased within the AI platforms. And I look forward to our next conversation. But Annaliese, what is your best way to contact you, and how should people follow up with you?
The biggest place I hang out on is LinkedIn. If you know me, I love to do DMs and intros there, even more than email. I am a mom of a very high energy 4.5 and 6.5-year-old who are brilliant and could be using Bunsen burners downstairs as we speak. But I can always answer a DM on LinkedIn, and we do have a free Google audit. If that's something that would be of value to you, conversation with my husband and I, where he can go in and just point out some things that might be helpful. No risk, no cost to you. So thank you all for joining us. We'll put out information about when it is next month. If this was of value to you, there will be a replay of the event that'll live on LinkedIn, and Kevin's going to use his techie magic to help create another version of it somewhere else, and you can direct your friends to that. And we're going to sign off. So have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Stay cool if you're in Texas.
Take care, everybody. See you next time.